Now, the edit menu is filled with all sorts of amazing features, some of which I've gotten into, some of which I haven't. Let's start with the basic. Let's say you do an action and you want to undo and redo it. Undo brush tool. Redo brush tool. So that's just Command Z. I taught you the shortcut, so please never go up here to do it. That's just pathetic. That was the first shortcut I taught you. Now, step forward and step backwards. Let's say that you do a few things. Yay, I'm drawing things in the sky. If you press Command Z a couple of times, that doesn't work. If you go into the history palette, here, let's just drag this out right here. You can kind of go back a bunch of times. The other way to go through the history palette is to step backwards. So just check out the history palette as I do this every time I press step backwards. So you could do it this way. I actually would say that that's the worst way to do it, going in here. The second worst way to do it is opening up the history palette and then going in through all of this. And I would say the best way to do it is Command-Alt-Z. So Command-Option-Z, call it what you will. And then if you just hit Command-Z, you can go back and forth in the history palette. So Command-Alt-Z. So in other words, never click these two things either. Now, let's say here, I'm going to go back in the history palette and then drop it up here. Now, let's say that you apply a filter. So next thing we're going to get into is fade. Let's say you apply a filter. So I don't know, let's do something I would probably not use all that often. Let's do pixelate. So the sky is pixels now. And we kind of want to fade that a bit. So if I go into Edit, Fade Mosaic, what we can do is whatever the last used filter is, we can kind of fade it into the background like that. So it's kind of a convoluted workflow to do something with. But, it can be cool. You add a lot of noise. You're like, that's too much noise. I don't want to go back into the filter. Fade, add noise. You can just kind of fade it back. I suggest just adding it on a different layer or duplicating out the layer and playing it with this way. Because, again, fade is kind of convoluted, but, it's there. It exists. Cut and copy, I really, really hope you know by now. If you don't, you've learned nothing. Cut, and then paste, and then you can move it around because it's on its separate layer. But we know this because we're not starting with this session. That would be crazy. I'm going to step backwards in the history palette with these step forward, step backwards things. Copy, I'm not even going to go over that. Come on. Copy merge. This is an interesting one. I actually haven't talked about this. Just wanted to save this selection. We'll get back to that in a little bit. So if you have a bunch of different images that are going right here, and I think this is a fairly new feature, and you want to copy all of the layers at once. So I want to copy this section here. This is easier to just show you. I'm just going to create a selection of this, and then I'm going to say copy merged, and then paste. Then watch this. This is pretty cool. It just copies everything that's on that area. So that can be really cool, especially if you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of layers and you're not exactly sure which ones you want to copy, but you just want to copy everything. So that's a really cool feature right there. And again, all I do is I just, here, let's do a circle. I just select an active region and I go to copy merged and then I paste it in. Then using the move tool, it's everything that's underneath that area. So that's really cool right there. All right, paste is paste. Come on, guys. We're better than that. Paste special is something that I haven't shown you. There's a couple of variations on this. Let me get rid of some of these unnecessary layers. If you have an area and you select something and you copy it and then you paste it, sometimes it will paste exactly on top of the area. And sometimes, let's say that you zoom in and then you move over here and then you hit Command V, it will set it in this area right here. So by default, if you just press paste, it will do it right here. However, if you do paste special, paste in place, it will paste it exactly where it was originally copied from. So the other way to get to that is Command-Shift-V as opposed to just Command-V. And that I use all the time, paste in place. Now, something that I haven't shown you is if you have here, let's turn off this layer and let's delete this and let's create a new layer. If you have a selection, so let's just make the selection something like this. And this is kind of a really convoluted workflow, which is why I never use it. But you can use paste special, paste into, and check out the layers palette as I do this. It pastes the circle that we have into a mask of whatever we had selected right there. So and then we can kind of use the move tool to move this around this mask that's been created. And if this is a little bit confusing, yeah, this is kind of a really confusing way to approach doing this. And I really can't think of anyone that would want this as their workflow because it's just really, really confusing. I can't think of a use case for this, but it exists. And you can also do paste outside, so the mask becomes the opposite of what the selection is. So I don't know. This is just needlessly confusing to me. So I would suggest ignoring those two things because there's better ways to do it that aren't the most confusing thing ever. So here, let's turn on this layer and let's just, I don't know, copy this out. And yay, we have a layer that looks like this. If you have a selection and you press clear, it clears everything in that selection. Now, here's the thing. You can also press delete. So again, edit clear, kind of useless. All right, so we have, let's say we have some type. Let's, I don't know, I have type here that's really small and hard to read. Let's just make that a little bit bigger. We all know how to do that. And let's also kind of make it so we're on a color that isn't completely unreadable. I have type here that's really small and hard to read. If we go into edit, check spelling, I think I have a couple of misspelled words. It will check the spelling. All right, we're done here. And then you can also do find and replace text. This is actually a really cool feature when it was introduced into Photoshop a few versions back. Now it's old hat. Oh my God, this red text is destroying my eyes. I'm changing it to black. You're not learning anything there, but I just can't.